Hey my friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Today we are looking at and test driving the all-new redesigned second generation 2023 Honda HR-V, the new entry-level SUV from Honda. All right, my friends, for 2023, the redesign of the HR-V has made it longer, it's made it lower, it's made it wider. It now shares its chassis and platform and essentially the footprint with the also relatively new 11th generation Honda Civic. The model we have here is an EX all-wheel drive, and as tested, we are $30,000 and some change. This does start out in the low to mid 20s if you get down into the lower trim grades. And so here we've got essentially the fully loaded EX. Styling for the new HR-V also follows form with the newest generation Civic. It has a lot of the same styling DNA up front and definitely a more conservative look front to rear. You can see that in all of the details, the window lines, the creases, and particularly in the face. It has a very tall face and black gloss trim on the grille and the wheel wells. LED headlights as well. Look at those. Those have a lot of detail in there. Very nice looking. And when we come around the corner, this has 17-inch alloy wheels with a metallic black finish on them. From this angle, you can see how much different this looks from the last generation HR-V. It's definitely longer. It's definitely more station wagon-like. And it's definitely just a little bit lower, at least in the way it looks with its longer length. Looking at the rear, this does not have a power hatch on this one, but the hatch does have a built-in spoiler at the top with a body color element. And the taillights here are, of course, LED, and they wrap around the corners nice and slender and sleek-like. And looking down in the rear lower fascia, they've kept it simple here. They're not dressing it up with a lot of exhaust tips or fake exhaust tips or anything like that. It's just a nice, simple, clean design. And with the gloss black cladding that this has on the EX, I think it all looks very tasteful, especially with this color. While the exterior design might be what you might call conservative, when you step inside here, this is where the world really becomes rich. This is an interior that's based on the same design, theme, and DNA of the most recent Civic, much like the exterior. And what that gives us is a very interesting looking dash that's very architectural with a full horizontal line of the honeycomb gridwork with hidden vents. All of the hardware in here and the things that you touch are of a very high quality. Soft trims everywhere your hands roam, the dash, the center console, the doors. And as I sit here and look forward, I've got a steering wheel in my hands with leather trim on it. And ahead of that, a very nice digital instrument cluster. On the left is a 7-inch screen, and on the right, an analog dial. And when it lights up, it all looks like it's one big piece, but it's cleverly put together that way. Very much customizable with some different information sets. The steering wheel, of course, has high quality switchgear as we've come to expect in Honda, as does the center stack. Looking over here, an 8-inch screen for the infotainment system. Down below that, a 3-dial HVAC setup for all the controls. Looking at the center console, this is really something special. This is a very highly sculpted, sort of artistic design, and it's got this sort of flying bridge element here in the center, and down below that, a nice big pad where you can set a phone or other devices, and there's charging ports on both sides. And so you can actually lay things down there and charge them while you're on the road trip. And you can do that up front in the center cubby as well. Up front, there's actually a charger, a wireless charger up front, and a connection port for the infotainment system. Cup holders in front of that. Now, they're sort of buried up here in the front, but believe it or not, you can actually get some pretty big gas station cups up here, and they're still out of the way. A conventional shifter, which I love that in a car. And storage in here is pretty generous. This is a pretty big box for a vehicle of this size. I could almost put 2 square tissue boxes in here, so that I really do like. Now I'm sitting on some very comfortable seats. Honda is known for their comfortable seats, and these are trimmed in leather, and they're very supportive. There's good side bolstering on these seats. I have a power seat here for the driver. On the passenger side, that is a manual adjusting seat, but it's very easy to find your comfortable spot here, and I could literally sit here all day in these chairs, and they are heated as well. Also optioned here is a sunroof, which is a very nice feature. Not a full panoramic, but a standard sunroof. They're almost becoming extinct these days. One of the benefits to the stretch and wheelbase and length of the new HR-V is the fact that there's a lot more space back here for your rear seat passengers. Now, the old HR-V was a bit more of a taller SUV, so you sat up higher and you didn't feel like you were down in a car so much. This very much feels like the back seat of a Honda Civic sedan. And so my knees are perched up just a little bit. It's a slightly lower seating position, but the legroom is very good, as you can see. These seats are set for my height, which is about 5'8", with my tennis shoes on. And you can see I've got about 4 inches of legroom here, and above my head about 4 inches of headroom. So there's plenty of space back here. You could probably put a 6-footer back here and they would fit. Maybe not the most comfortable place for them, but they would fit. As I sit here and look around at the amenities that the backseat customers have, not really a lot. There's a few things missing here, in my opinion, at $30,000. Vents on the back of the center console. If you're sitting back here in 110-degree heat here in Arizona, you're not getting any cold air on the face. There's also no charging ports back here, which again, at this price, that's something that's missing. Another thing missing, there's no center armrest back here for the rear seats. Another item that I found curiously missing from the cargo area is a pool shade. Now maybe that's a dealership option, but most vehicles in this class come with that. There's no privacy shade for that rear cargo area. Weird. This seat does fold down in a 60-40 split, and as you can see, it's a pretty flat load floor back there, and it's a pretty generous load area. Again, larger because this vehicle got quite a bit bigger with the redesign. Underneath the floor, there's some storage underneath the main panel, but there's also a spare tire down there. Very important, I think, when you get into a crossover SUV that you might go camping with out in the mountains someplace, and there might not be a cell phone to get somebody to come help you if you don't have that spare. So that is very important, I think. When it comes to rating this interior, I'm very impressed with the fit and finish, the design, all of the soft trims, and it just looks like it's a step up in price grade. And especially this console, it's very comfortable. It's a nice, comfortable place to lay your hand when you're driving along, and it's versatile at the same time. It just, when you compare this to a lot of the vehicles that you can set right next to this and compare side by side, this has probably one of the best interiors in the class as it relates to design, switchgear quality, and the fit and finish, and the sense that you're sitting in something that is upscale. Now, where it does fail in some areas, comfort in the back seat, not so good, and it is missing some features, especially back there. No vents for the back seat at $30,000. That is missing. But for the most part, this is a very well done cabin. This interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is one of Honda's best. It's an 8-inch touchscreen, and it is near fully featured. Now, it doesn't have navigation, it does not have the top-end audio, but using it, it has all of the feature content that you'd want. Satellite radio, Bluetooth connectivity, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and those are wireless. And using it is very easy to do. They put a volume knob on here, and they put tuning buttons on here, hard controls for those things that used to be a lot more difficult in the past with Honda. Navigating around on the menu, very easy. It's got great graphics. It's easy to understand. And when you need to dig into settings for the vehicle and things like that, it's all very easy to find where you'd expect it. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to just sit in this car and start using this right away. And even though this doesn't have like a Bose audio or something like that, it sounds very good, even on satellite radio, which a lot of these don't. It has a good backup camera, and the graphics on that, very good day and night. I'm very impressed with this. For this price range, this is actually better than some of the competitors that charge you by subscription for some of the features that are standard here. The system gets 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, now it's time to take a drive. And if you watch my videos, the first question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So we're out here in the middle of nowhere, complete stop, and go. Ooh, a little bit leisurely. Leisurely. A little bit of a shift point there, and 60. All right. So, it takes its time. So what this has under the hood is the same 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that you're going to find under the contemporary Civic. Also, there is the same continuously variable transmission that does have simulated shift points, when you really step on it and really ask for them. So it sort of gives you the sensation that you've got, well, a real transmission, even though you don't technically. And as we come to a stop here, one of the nice things it doesn't have is auto start stop. They didn't give it this, not yet. I'm glad. Makes it a lot more fun to drive, a lot more enjoyable around town. So with 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque, it is more power than the last generation HR-V, but this is also a heavier vehicle than the last generation HR-V. So acceleration probably isn't going to feel that much different if you've already got one or if you've had one before. This does have the optional intelligent all-wheel drive, which is what Honda's always called real-time all-wheel drive, and so it's always working. There's no front-wheel drive, then all-wheel drive. There's no switch to change. There's no mode for that. It's mainly for all weather conditions. And so the drive modes this has: comfort, eco, normal. There is no sport mode, but you can pull the shifter down into a sport mode there, and that immediately raises the RPM and gives you a sensation of more response when you lay into the throttle. There's also a low setting down there. Now, fuel economy, this is rated at 25 city, 30 highway, and 27 mpg combined. In my week with it, I didn't quite get there. I got about 24 mpg combined, not quite what the window sticker promised, and that's a good mix of highway and freeway driving. So overall, when it comes to talking about this powertrain and putting a rating on it, it could use a little bit more power. It's a little bit low on the power scale, but in fairness, so are most of its competitors. It's really on par with the Toyota Corolla Cross that I recently test drove. And fuel efficiency could be a little bit better. This powertrain gets 4 out of 5 stars. Now, when it comes to chassis, as I've said already, this does share its platform architecture with the 11th generation Honda Civic. Why it's longer, lower, and wider. But one of the big benefits of that is that it's a little bit more premium. It now has a structure that's a lot more solid, quite a bit stiffer, so says Honda. And it's also got a little bit more of a high-feature suspension. Underneath me, under the rear, is a fully independent multi-link suspension, not a twist beam axle. A bit of an upgrade there, and something some of the competitors don't even offer, even with all-wheel drive, Mazda. And it has, of course, a McPherson strut front suspension. Standard stuff there, but premium stuff at the rear. 4-wheel disc brakes, and of course some nice lightly weighted power steering. Around town, I find that this thing has a very high quality feel, as I've come to expect from Honda, going over bumps, speed humps in the neighborhood, things like that. Nothing really gets this chassis. It doesn't get its feathers ruffled. I don't feel any clunks or thunks that tell me that it's anything other than a high quality, well put together vehicle. Out on the highway, it does have a little bit more of a firm ride. Again, something I expect from Honda. It's tuned for a little bit of a sporty handling feel, and so it's very stable at speed. On the highway, 70 mile-an-hour decibel test, it comes in at 59.8 decibels, which is on the lower end of the scale, lower than average. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with this chassis for this price range, much better than the Corolla Cross I recently tested. This chassis comes in at 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, there you have it for our walk around, interior, and test drive of the 2023 Honda HR-V. I like it. I think they've done a nice package here. The design, you know, a little more conservative, but if you're looking for a Honda Civic and you want more utility, this is really just about like a Honda Civic wagon. Yes, it's taller, it's a little bit more crossover SUV-like, but in essence, it's a Honda Civic wagon, right? And so when you look at what you can compare this to out there in the market, there are things like the Toyota Corolla Cross, which is essentially a Toyota Corolla that has gotten the same taller wagon treatment. And there are quite a few other vehicles you can compare this to in size and price, but here I think that Toyota Corolla Cross is the closest thing that you can match this thing up to, and this is far better in a lot of ways. The quality inside's better, the features that you get for the money are better, the driving experience is better. It's got leather interior available in I mean, you can't even get that in most of the competitors. So I really like what they've done here. It feels richer. It just has a nice quality, solid feel. It's nice to live with. And for $30,000 in the top level model, I think there's a lot here. And of course, you don't have to spend that. You can go down into the low to mid 20s for the base model. So I put value here at 5 out of 5 stars. It checks all the boxes. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4.5 stars for the review. Very good, definitely worth a look if you're in this class, in this price range. There's a lot of car here to check out. So that said, if you like what we've done here, see us on social media. A lot of channels down there. And you can also see our latest video right there. But best yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel right down there. Either way, stay tuned.